This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. It's Monday. For those of you who just flew in on your private jet for Coachella, boy, do we have a show for you. Cowherd tells you that LeBron and the Cavs will be okay. No one in the East will beat them 4 times. I think that's a little knee-jerk, Colin. Come on, it's just one game. Boom. Last night, did you see that, everybody? James Harden dominated. Patrick Beverley dominated. And Whitlock tells you that Harden is the better player, but the MVP race is over. New Fox Sports NBA analyst Doug Gottlieb joins the show and tells you Russell Westbrook is a lot like Kobe Bryant. My way or the highway? We ask the question, is Draymond Green the most important player on the Warriors? And what he adds is something different than any other member on that team. And faithful listeners will remember I actually said this about Draymond back in March on our show. It's not Curry, it ain't Durant, Draymond Green, the most important player on the Warriors. Plus, Chris Carter weighs in on the emotional night for Isaiah Thomas. And former Knick and Clipper Kenyon Martin joins the show to bring the heat to Doc Rivers. Ready for Speak For Yourself? Colin and Jason, take it away.
All right, welcome to the show. We'll tell you why LeBron and the Cavs should be worried.
And why Russell Westbrook proved he's not the MVP. Speak For Yourself starts right now.
Oh, we got a big show planned for you today.
That was a joyous
Can we start? Oh, we did start on a wide shot. You have never seen this much ego in one spot. Let me tell you how much ego's on this set. Colin has constructed a narrative that he's the most self-aware, humble person on this set. That's how much ego. Horowitz right now is sitting around, oh my God, we're about to embrace debate on a whole different level. All right, I'm Jason Whitlock. I know how to manage a startup. That's Colin Cowherd. He knows how to talk baseball. That's Doug Gottlieb. He's going to give the white opinion. And if things go poorly, Chris Carter's our fall guy. Great show. All right.
Welcome to your first day.
It was a huge opening weekend in the NBA playoffs. Let's start in Cleveland, where LeBron and the Cavs eked out a one-point victory over my Pacers Saturday. C.J. Miles clanked a last-second shot that would have given the Pacers the victory. I've been worried about the Cavs for a while, and Saturday's game didn't give me any confidence going into tonight's game, too. Colin, are you finally concerned about the Cavaliers?
No, I just think there's limitations. Like, when I watch the Cavaliers, LeBron wanted shooters, they got shooters, and a lot of them are old guys that don't play defense. So I've just come to the reality, this is what Cleveland is. Like, some people will...
A team that only beats the Pacers by a point.
Well, a team that will beat the Pacers and probably the Wizards in a series of close games because they can't make stops. They're going to win the East. But ultimately, LeBron got exactly what he wanted. Smart veteran guys who can hit threes. Most of them are old and can't defend. I don't think Cleveland played poorly. This is now what they are, the best team in the conference with massive limitations defensively.
The Pacers barely eked over 500. The Pacers are my team. They're not a great offensive team. Scored 100 and some odd points.
They shot 49%.
Shot 45% from three. Yeah. The Cavaliers can't stop the Pacers. I think Washington or Toronto has better pieces. Again, I would just be a little bit worried about the Cavaliers.
I think, look, it's the cumulative effect, right? We say this in college football. We say it in the NFL. When you play an arduous schedule and ultimately you get to the championship game, you've been worn down by everybody else. We saw it last year, I think, with Golden State. The year before, Cleveland, obviously, with the injuries. The cumulative effect of the Pacers taking a game from them, of in the next series going to 6, in the Eastern Conference Championship going to 7. That cumulative effect, in addition to the fact that they don't defend very well, you got those older legs. That makes them game to be beaten by the Golden State Warriors. I'm extremely concerned because there was this arrogance. You talk about ego. There's an arrogance to Cleveland that they can just, like that old commercial, the clap on. Clap on, we're going to play. You can't do that in the NBA. If the Pacers are one shot away from beating you when you're supposed to turn it on, I think that spells trouble in the end.
I'm not concerned because of the game, because we've seen this before, not only when LeBron been in Cleveland, but also when LeBron was in Miami. There were series where there were games that were really, really close. But the question is, not am I concerned about the Cavs, am I concerned that someone can beat them 4 times? because that's what you have to do.
Right.
They do not defend the perimeter. That's what the NBA is about.
You've been saying that for 6 months.
Yeah, it's spread the court, and they don't have great individual defenders. JR is just getting his legs back under him. Richard Jefferson was getting ready to quit. So now they depend on him. We know Kyrie is not a great defender, so that record-breaking pace that they're giving up at three-point, yes, it would be for concern because there's so many teams, if they get hot, they can beat them on a given night. But can they beat them 4 games? That's where I don't have as much concern as you guys.
You don't think they can get beaten 4 games? You don't think that?
No, not the East. No, I don't have any concerns. I believe they're going to get to the finals. I don't believe there's no team in the East that can beat them 4 times.
Okay, if the narrative was, which it was going playoffs, clap on. They're going to take it to another level. What better way to do it than game 1 at home? Everybody sitting around going,
one-man team,
let me reverse it, though.
They still haven't played a lot together.
Let's reverse it. Should I be concerned? Because really, the Portland Trailblazers, for 3 quarters, went toe-to-toe with the Warriors. I would make the argument.
3 quarters and 4 minutes.
Well, but I make the argument that an underdog like Indy, that's their best shot. That was Portland's best shot. That was Indy's best shot. I'm going to argue the series this point forward leans more Cleveland.
Golden State pulled away from Portland and eventually did what we thought they were going to do.
They're a better team.
It never happened with the Cavaliers. You just kept waiting and waiting. At some point, they're going to put some stops together, and LeBron's going to dunk, and they're going to. I've seen the Pacers fall apart at the sight of LeBron. Did not happen.
Well, Colin makes a good point in that there usually is one game early in the series in which you can steal one, and as the NBA narrative is, a series doesn't begin until a road team wins a game. The difference is, though, here, if you look and you're honest about it, who do they have outside of Kyrie that can create his own shot? LeBron, okay, but no one's helping, and LeBron is going one-on-one and scoring some, but he really wants to create for others. They just don't have enough shot creators. Deron Williams is a shell of himself. You mentioned Richard Jefferson wanted to retire. Like, they have some older dudes, and the more... You're right, Chris. They haven't played together. But the more they play together, that's going to wear down those legs. I'm concerned. And then I'm also concerned, look, end of that game, they had the lead. LeBron settles for a deep jump shot instead of getting in the paint, getting a good shot, or getting the double team pass down. It's kind of the same LeBron.
He's adjusting his free throw style right now. Kyle Korver's helping him adjust his free throw style. That may be the reason he didn't go to the lane.
Yeah, but he was 7 out of 10 at that point. It was basically the same results. This year he shot 68%, the worst of his pro career. But you could actually see it. His left leg, his trail leg is closer to his body, and he's more staggered, and he's trying to keep the ball in front of him. At the end of the day, it's about him making plays at the end, and he didn't try to make a play, which could have cost him game 1.
To Houston, where James Harden's Rockets dominated Russell Westbrook's Thunder last night. The showdown of the top 2 MVP contenders couldn't have been worse for Westbrook. With a triple-double master finishing with more shots than points, Harden, on the other hand, looked like the MVP, though he didn't want to discuss the award after the game.
There's been a lot of talk outside the game about the MVP race, and what does it mean for you guys in a game like this to come out as a team
we don't
and
really
just
care
excel
about
the
the
way?
MVP race. Honestly, we don't care. It's game 1 of the playoffs. Good win for us. Prepare for game 2. The MVP race is over with.
All right, Whitlock, did Harden validate why he was my pick for the MVP?
I think he helped your argument is what he did. He did do that. And
I drove to work this morning knowing that.
Look, I love James Harden, just the way he handled that. Look, it's playoff time. I like James Harden. James Harden, I will make the argument, is a better player than Russell Westbrook.
I agree.
But Russell Westbrook is still the MVP of the regular season.
Right.
And so this is a one-off game. I think at some point during this season, this is going to reverse. Westbrook will have a big game, Harden will be off, and we'll be sitting there, did so-and-so validate the MVP? The MVP thing, just like James Harden said, is over. They had 82 games to prove that. Is James Harden a better player than Russell Westbrook? Probably. Okay. In the D'Antoni
By the
system.
way, I used this on my radio show today. When I was a kid growing up, loved Dr. J, and he was way more explosive. Then Larry Bird came in the league and was a better shooter, a better rebounder, and a way better passer. Everybody still kind of loved Dr. J, but Bird was a better player. Like, I know Russell Westbrook is like Dr. J. He's just more interesting to watch at times than James Harden, who kind of slithers. But can I say this?
Dr. J into this, man.
I like Dr. J.
You
I
forget
love
Dr. J
Bird.
was MVP of the ABA, but that's going
But here's my point. I like great players are consistent. okay, consistency. 38 times this year, Russell Westbrook shot under 40%. Dude, it's a fireworks show. And sometimes they all go off.
80 times, or how many ever games he played, 81 times, he was under the most pressure to perform out of any player in the NBA.
Oh, pressure. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
pressure. Harden's got no pressure.
I'm not saying he's got none.
You know,
I didn't say
to me, Westbrook, I like Westbrook, but I like ice cream. Now, I'm lactose tolerant. There's a lot of people not lactose tolerant. You know, for those not lactose, they like ice cream, but there's a side effect to ice cream that they might not like. But they're willing to eat the ice cream. But when the ice cream goes bad on that person, it looks like, so last night was not a one-off. That's what he looks like when he looks bad. And if you really like basketball and you like the optics, you can't like turning the ball over. There's nothing more precious than possession of the basketball. And his first 4 or 5 turnovers, you would act like he was thinking this is an NBA All-Star game or something. Like, that's no big deal. I mean, he's trying to thread passes. He's careless with the basketball. Those are the things, Colin, I can really, really understand. And when you get to the playoffs, you would think he would be more careful, and he was actually less careful with the basketball.
I think what we saw from Russell Westbrook is Russell Westbrook. He's a sheer force of will guy. He's going to make it happen come hell or high water, and sometimes it's not going to happen. And credit Houston, who's not known for their defense, doing a great job of clogging the lane and ganging up on him and making him shoot three-point shots, which is the weakness to his offensive game. But the reason he's going to win the MVP, and we all admit he's going to win the MVP, right?
Yes.
Whether he should or he shouldn't, he's the most, and I would agree with you, he's not the best player in the NBA. LeBron's the best player. Harden's a better all-around offensive player. But it's the consistency of effort at both ends of the floor. It's the leadership, even if it's a different way of leadership than I would lead, than you would lead, than Chris, you would lead. Like, we're doing it my way, and we're doing it my way, and that's the end of it. So he's a Kobe Bryant type of leader. He's a sheer force of will guy, and that's what it looks like when you get the bad Westbrook. When you get the good Westbrook, he throws in 50, and everybody starts going, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
But before the game, he says, you know, my dad taught me is my best friend on the court's the ball.
Great point.
And listen, that in a nutshell is what drives me crazy. Listen, I grew up with you needed 2 players to win a title. And then all of a sudden, the guys go to Boston and Miami, it's 3. Now you could argue it's 4. Like, I'm best friends with the basketball. That's why KD left. Like, that's a bad sign.
It was a great explanation of his personality and the way he plays.
Yes.
No,
I was like, wow, I can understand that.
You also have to understand, though, in terms of the mentality.
Wide receiver mentality.
And there's that, what his dad taught him. And the fact, his first year at UCLA, he averaged 9 minutes a game. You know, he was always thought to be the Robin to Batman. Now he's given his own team. And being in Oklahoma City and having worked there and lived there, I know that they're still kind of gun-shy because of what happened with Kevin Durant. Remember, Kevin Durant was terrible against the Grizzlies, and they called him Mr. Unreliable?
Yes.
Everybody freaked out. You can't say that about Durant. Now Durant leaves, like, whoa, we got to be super nice to Russell Westbrook.
That makes sense.
Right? And so they're just feeding them on. Russell has a bad game, it's everybody else's fault. Russell has a good game, he's the reason
Well, they've
we're winning
lost
games.
Harden and Durant. It's what you would call a small market, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there is a sense like, we're going to give him whatever he wants, and if we have to boost his rebound numbers a little, we're going to do it.
You made a great point earlier on Colin's radio show talking about the general manager.
Sam Presti.
Man, he deserves some blame for this.
Well, it's ownership and the general manager. But, like, you can't watch that game and not think, like, wait, didn't they used to be on the same team? Yeah. And then you go and you watch yesterday and you watch Kevin Durant, like, did they all used to be? Wait, they had all 3 of those guys? And they traded him away for Kevin Martin because he won a little bit more money. Like, if they would have paid all 3 of those guys, they were in one NBA Finals. They would have been in several NBA. That's changed the dynamic of the NBA history simply by trading James Harden. And no one criticizes Sam Presti.
Great day for you yesterday. One guy played like the basketball's his best friend, and the other guy played like the MVP didn't matter and winning is the only thing that mattered. All right, to Boston, where the Celtics lost an emotional Game 1 to the Bulls just a day after Isaiah Thomas's sister was killed in a car accident. Thomas was visibly distraught before the game, and Charles Barkley, as usual, offered an unvarnished opinion about the situation.
I'm not even sure what to say. I'm not feeling comfortable with him sitting on the sideline crying like that. That makes me uncomfortable. So that tells me he's not in shape to play. I mean, I don't know how this night is going to turn out, but to be sitting on the sideline a few minutes before the game crying, that makes me uncomfortable for him. That's just not a good look, in my personal opinion. I mean, he is clearly devastated, like we all would be if we lost a sibling. But sitting on the sideline, like right before the game, that makes me uncomfortable.
Colin, the Celtics lost, but Isaiah scored a game-high 38. Are you surprised at how well he played? 33, I'm sorry. How well he played?
No, because, tragedy does different things to different people. Like I was saying today on my radio show that the closest we've ever been as a country, at least in my adult life, was the day after 9/11. Like, ultimate tragedy, seeing Americans die, it brought us together. That was glue for our country and then, 5 days later, we're all arguing about politics. So personal tragedy affects people differently. And when I saw that, I'm like, well, he's a pro athlete. Maybe this is the game. He needs a game today. Like, maybe today is the day he needs a game. I remember the Brett Favre Monday Night Football game. It's just people react differently to tragedy. And I think sometimes professional athletes are uniquely qualified. I mean, sometimes these events elevate them out of a dark spot.
You mentioned the Brett Favre Monday night game, and that's a great reference that I wasn't thinking of previously. But I'll say this. I want to defend Charles Barkley a little bit because I think his comments are being taken out of context. He wasn't remotely criticizing Isaiah Thomas. I think he was speaking as a player, and he didn't articulate it perfectly. But I look at his teammates in Boston, and I wonder if Isaiah wasn't able to focus on the game and was looking forward to the game, but the emotion he showed on the sidelines was disconcerting to his teammates.
Yeah, it's possible.
And when he wasn't on the court, he was their best player, 33 points, plus 12, plus minus. When he wasn't on the court, the Celtics shot 25% without him. And so, unlike the Brett Favre game where everybody elevated around Brett Favre.
Did it affect his teammates?
Did his teammates get shaken by his emotion and get a little bit off?
For one, I'm a very emotional person and was a very, very emotional player. One of my coaches taught me when I was younger playing football. Football is a game of emotion, but Chris, you have to control your emotion and use it to your benefit. And even as a young player, I got so emotional, I used to always cry. And I learned how to play, because football is a game you could play crying. And I go to basketball season, we're like, Coach, tell me, you can't play basketball here crying. But I understand what Charles was saying. Charles was saying that he was uncomfortable with the way Isaiah was reacting. And me being a person like Isaiah, I was comfortable because I know every time I do cry, I feel better afterwards. And if my teammates knew me, like if they knew what really got me going, my teammates would know, let him go. He's going to be okay. He's going to cry, but he's still going to play hard and he's still going to do what he has to do. I don't think the Celtics knew exactly in this situation how he was going to react. So you make a great point, and I see what Charles was saying. Charles was uncomfortable because as a basketball player, can I do my job? But me as an emotional person, I know that I can focus, I can concentrate, and also I can cry and be very, very emotional.
And I do think you nailed that he didn't articulate exactly what he wanted to say, because I think there's also the possibility that Charles Barkley was saying, if Isaiah Thomas doesn't want to play tonight, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a basketball game. There might be 6 more. You might get beat out of the playoffs, but everyone would understand if you just emotionally couldn't do it. But you just had this feeling, if you know Isaiah Thomas's story, that he was going to give you something fairly special. Last guy picked in the NBA draft. I mean, he's barely 5'9", and he's made himself into the #1 fourth quarter scorer in the NBA this year. Wow. Think about that. Wow. 5'9", scored more points than anybody in the fourth quarter. He closes out games.
And he delivered last night in the fourth.
Right, and he is, they're the #1 seed. It's crazy. What last night proved was not that the Celtics are a fraud, or I heard on your radio show they probably should have they overachieved in the regular season. They're not that good. But because of his will, because of his heart, look, he was traded twice. They ran him out of Sacramento. They ran him out of Phoenix, uncoachable. Brad Stevens loves him, and that's why, because he can process all of that other stuff and focus it and play with kind of a Russell Westbrook sort of rage in a positive way. And I do think Charles was right, that you're so consumed because you're a good teammate, and that place has a great culture of Isaiah's feelings and how are we all gonna play and can we rise our level, that maybe that pressure was a little bit too much. And the Bulls played one of their best games of the year and hit shots that sometimes they don't make. But I was expecting that type of performance.
Listen, I was not expecting that type. He was very efficient. And I want to be heard in context. I think they may lose this series. And I think he's going to play game 2, then he's going to fly to Washington for the funeral. I think this may just your best player, your most important player. Boston's a team that's not really overly talented, and the chemistry and all that. They could lose this series.
Not a good matchup for them going against Chicago.
Well, especially on the glass, and when Boston gets out-rebounded, they usually lose, and Chicago hit the glass.
So don't want to blame it, but it could play a role in this series.
Welcome back, Chris Carter, Hall of Famer. Of course, my best friend, Doug Gully, whose brand new radio show debuts next Monday on Fox Sports Radio. That's awesome. All right, time for Who's the Best, presented by America's Best Contacts and Eyeglasses. Let's move to perhaps the best performance of the weekend, that of Draymond Green. Boy, he filled up the box score. Blazers kept it close with Green's Warriors for a while, but then Draymond took over third and the fourth quarter. Some
what a block.
Spectacular blocks, big shots that helped put the game out of reach. Here's Steve Kerr on Draymond's incredible night.
He played a game that, I'm not sure anybody else in the league is capable of, honestly. Who else can do what Draymond just did tonight? He's so unique and so important to us, and he was phenomenal.
All right, Whitlock, they have 2 MVPs in their prime, but is Draymond the most irreplaceable Golden State Warrior?
I think it would be the equivalent of looking at the Bulls and saying Dennis Rodman and his defensive effort. Or, no, let's take the Bulls out. Dennis Rodman and the Detroit Pistons. And then somehow concluding Dennis was more valuable than Isaiah Thomas or Joe Dumars. I wouldn't go there. What Draymond did was incredible. It was inspiring. The defensive blocks were the most exciting plays in that game. He does add a toughness to that team. But when you start talking about who's most valuable, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, even Klay Thompson, the team's built around shooting. Draymond's a decent shooter, but he ain't those guys. Draymond's incredible, not the most irreplaceable.
You know, it's interesting. He reminds me a little bit, kind of like Foreman in the heavyweight division. Like if everybody would have been Muhammad Ali, handsome, smooth, great, but Foreman made it interesting. He was flawed. He was the big slugger. Draymond really adds a texture to Golden State. I mean, let's be honest. They replicate a lot of things. They all shoot. It's a perimeter team. Even Ian Clark. Like they're really highly skilled. And here comes the bouncer into the nightclub. He's the tough guy. I think he makes them really fun. Conflict at the rim. He's sometimes inappropriate. He flails. He kicks. Like, I know everybody thinks Steph Curry but if you're asking me who makes them the most interesting, he's the biggest character. Rodman made the Bulls more interesting. Wasn't the best player, but there's something to it.
The reason we're all here is because of fit, right? That you have to fit, and he fits them. They want to play small. He's the best 5 who can guard the 1 in the NBA. He can shoot threes just well enough to keep you honest. Yeah. So much about fit more than anything. Is he the best player? Absolutely not. You would take Kevin Durant first and Steph Curry second and Klay Thompson third. You might take him fourth. You might not. But he's a perfect fit for how they play, and they're a little bit soft, or at least have the perception of being a little bit soft.
They are.
And he's a little bit tough. And he's a pain in the ass. He says things he shouldn't. He acts ways he shouldn't. But that's why you put up with it, CC, because he can play and he can win you games.
Good points there. But also what he does is what Steve Kerr doesn't have to do. Because the intangibles, you can't draw them up. You can't make those blocks. You can't play with that type of energy. And what it does, what allows him to do is when he runs his mouth to his teammates as far as leadership, it gives him clout because he can back it up. So coaches love him. His teammates love him because you can't play a competitive game of sports without a guy like him. So you might draft the other 3 guys or 4 guys in front of him, but what are they without the glue? Like, he is the glue to keep them together. And if you look at Game 7 last year, he almost had a triple-double. He was their best player in Game 7 last year.
Would he be the hardest guy to replace?
He's the hardest guy to replace because you can replace shooters. And they got 3 shooters. Then they would still have 2.
They won 13 straight with KD out. They've got shooters.
They might have the best shooters in the history of the game. So I would agree you can replace shooters. Look, everyone in the NBA is searching for a Draymond Green. But I love that we're highlighting the blocks because his ability to defend multiple positions, his ability at, 6'6", hey, 6'6" to block 2 dunks. Like, you see those plays once a season from a guy. We saw it twice in a game.
And when they go get Durant, we know coming out, this is going to be one of the weaknesses of this team. When they get to the playoffs, who's going to be able to protect the rim? Now, when LeBron comes through there, he ain't going to be able to protect the rim.
It was also a reminder. We've become very 3-centric. The 2 moments of that game that brought everybody to their feet were the blocks. We've fallen in love with the 3. But I keep saying this about the NBA. I understand the 3. It's like the no-huddle speed offense in college football. And Nick Saban's like, actually, you have to win at the point of attack. What Draymond illustrates is there is still part of this game, which is the combats at the rim that wins titles.
Yes.
Like, those were the 2... The crowd, the coaches.
And that's why LeBron dominated last year in the end of the finals, because he was suspended and then Andrew Bogut got hurt. Those are the 2 rim protectors.
This is a little tougher to answer than I initially thought, because I'm sitting here thinking about there's certain guys you play with, you work with or whatever. Their effort is so relentless every day that you look at yourself and quit. Man, this guy keeps playing hard. I better play. I better match his level of intensity and caring and effort, or I'm going to look bad. And again, not that those other guys are looking to slack off, but they're shooters. They have off days. They're known for doing other things. But when he's out there playing the way he's playing, you got to give effort on both ends.
We also live in a passive-aggressive culture. Everybody's on the same AAU team. They have the same agent. They have the same charities. The one guy in that locker room who would call out anybody to almost an inappropriate level would be Draymond. And sometimes the people who make us uncomfortable are really important.
Yeah, people want to be liked. He doesn't care if he's liked. Exactly. Like Ron Artest, like Dennis Rodman, he doesn't care if
they're really valuable people.
Absolutely.
All right, welcome back, Chris Broussard, Kenyon Martin. Here we go, staying here in Los Angeles. Wild game. Clippers lost game 1 of the Jazz Saturday night. Utah's best player, Rudy Gobert, went down in the first 20 seconds of the game, but Doc Rivers never found a way to exploit Gobert's absence. Doc's time management, end of the game, also raised some questions.
When Chris has a lane to the basket and he goes for a quick 2, I mean, it sets up the opportunity. I mean, what's the philosophy on there? Is it, do you wait and say wave off an easy attack at the basket? Or in other words, he could have held up and tried to run the clock down to the final. You know, when you were down 2,
Who would do that? Like, why would you ever do that?
Like to maybe like 5 seconds, you know,
so
enough time for an offensive.
The game's over.
Right. Well, no, like
that
5
makes
seconds.
No sense.
Right. I'm just asking.
No, that is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. When you're down 2,
right.
you try to score.
Exactly.
And then you put it on you don't wait.
You rely on your defense.
You score.
Whitlock, do you blame Doc for that game 1 loss?
I certainly don't blame him for Chris Paul scoring at the end, because, again, you score as early as possible, shoot as early as possible. You can foul. They miss free throws, and you get another shot. Listen, I think they could lose this series, and I'll blame Doc Rivers for that. I'll blame Doc Rivers for this L.A. Clippers team never going any further than Vinny Del Negro. That game last night, can't put it on Doc. You can put the whole thing on Doc, but let's let this play out. Let's let this play out before we're ready to put the dead man walking, before we pull the electric chair on.
Well, and, you know, I mean, everybody loves Brad Stevens. They lost a home game, too. I mean, it happened. You lose. Like, LeBron's lost game 1 of series several times. I don't have to know everything to know something. Something's not right with this team. It's either chemistry. When I watch the Clippers, I know Doc can take a big 3 and win a title. He's got a big 3 here, and they're struggling to win a second-round playoff series. Yeah. I don't like the communication. What is Blake Griffin now? He's not a great fourth quarter. DeAndre Jordan should have had a more profound effect. Like, when I watch this Clipper team, my takeaway is always, they should be better than this. Like, they should be better than their talent. Who is it?
Look, Doc was absolutely right about the question. I mean, you're down. You don't know that you're going to hit a shot. You go for it as soon as you can get it. You take whatever you can get. But if you and I are coaches, and I got the better point guard, I got the better power forward, our centers are even, but, yours got hurt. So now my center's better than you.
And you're at home.
I'm at home. My players are more experienced, and they're still in their prime. And we lose, it's my fault. Now, I'm not saying it's only Doc's fault. Chris Paul, Blake only scored 6 in the second half. Players take the blame, too. J.J. Redick didn't show up. But Doc should not get a pass on this. He has to take a lot of blame, especially if they lose this series.
Yeah, definitely. It's the talent that's on the team. Like you said, they got CP, they got Blake, they got DeAndre. But after that, you know what I'm saying, a lot of guys struggle to do their own thing, get their own shot. You know, so in them situations, game on the line, things like that, of course you want to go early. You know what I'm saying? But to put the blame on Doc it's everybody. It's Doc, it's the team, they didn't get a stop.
Well,
they didn't call
hold
time.
on, kid. They got AJ Reddick, they got Crawford coming off the bench. And I know he's old, but they got pieces.
Yeah, they got one person that can get his own shot, which is Jamal. Everybody else relies on CP. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, do you put the blame on Doc for putting that team together? But like you said, you can't put the blame on Doc just for that one game, but if they lose the series, I'm with you.
Just like you said, they're not as good as they should be. They should be in the class of Golden State, Cleveland, and San Antonio.
And by the way, when Doc...
not that they should beat them.
It's a different skill set with the guys. It's a different skill set with the guys because you got DJ who relies on CP to feed him. You got JJ Redick who relies on CP to give him the ball. So a lot of those guys rely on CP, but Golden State and other teams like that, they got guys that's playmakers that can go get their own shot.
But on not San Antonio,
Kawhi can get his shot. LaMarcus can get his shot.
Listen, if they don't, let's say, forget losing. Let's say they escape this series. You're getting to a point now. Like, Houston's not going to get worse. Golden State's not going to get worse.
Spurs aren't.
I mean, you get to a point with this. Sometimes, okay. It's not like the NFL where if you get the right quarterback, you just stay with him as long as you can. Yeah. You're getting to a point here where Steve Ballmer bought this thing, probably spent twice as much as what it was worth. He wants to get past the second round. We're not far from blowing this thing up.
They have to do something.
They have to.
Keegan, everybody hates it when I say this, but I've been dying to ask an NBA player. Doc brought his son to that team. How does that play in the locker room, man? No way.
It's when he was a hiccup away from being out of the league.
Oh, he was going to be out.
He was out of the league. Without his dad being general manager and president, Austin Rivers is playing in the D League. To me, some guys might have a problem with it. Some guys might not voice it. Some guys might voice it. But if I was on the team, I would have a problem with it.
Thank you.
Because I would feel that somebody else that would be more worthy of that spot.
Especially when you're not getting past the second round of the plaffs.
And you're like Austin solid. He's okay.
Yeah, he's become pretty good.
He's become, but when he first got traded or whatever from New Orleans, it was a lot of other guys out there that deserved that spot, that could have used that spot. And Doc brought him in.
And there's a lot of guys that would love to have their dad nurture them into being an NBA player.
And I feel that not only do they resent that, I love Chris Paul. Yeah. So Chris Paul is one of my favorite players in the league. I don't necessarily think the Clipper teammates always feel that. There is something there that's not right.
Chris is a hard teammate. I mean, he's always chirping. He pounds the ball a lot, you know, so that's a dynamic, too, that hurts the team morale, as great as he is.
Yeah, all that's compounded. Like, when he's out there and you can see the facial expressions sometimes.
You can.
Guys, oh, here you go again. You know what I'm saying? Like, he dribble, or he asked Jamal Crawford the other day, tell me why. Like, if you look at his mouth expression, he asked Jamal 15, 16 years in the league, like tell me why you did that. Like, tell me why. Like, you can't talk to everybody that way.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? And everybody's not going to accept it. You know what I'm saying? So it's some situations where it's good timing and it's bad timing, but when it's always coming from the same person, it gets drowned out of it.
They're not as good as they should be. Yeah. Utah should not win that game. No way.
They
might win the series.
Yeah, they might
for real.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Hope you enjoyed the show. A lot of fun. Big week ahead. It's going to be all NBA playoffs and NFL draft. So excited. I won't be getting much sleep. I know you won't either. Remember, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We're on SoundCloud too. Check us out on YouTube as well. Hey, last quick note. For all the love on Draymond Green, do you know how tough it is to find the next Draymond Green? Kind of a tweener who does a little bit of everything, is an emotional guy who really has been an underdog most of his career. Do you know how hard it is to find the next Draymond Green? Teams would love it. Someone who can guard a center and then guard a point guard. It's very tough to find. I wrote about it on thebiglead.com if you want to go check it out. Finding the next Draymond Green, it's mission impossible in the NBA. Have a good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.